Off to a great start, Chris. That took way too long. That took way too long. Yeah. What's up? That's Chris Moxley. Wrong way. That's Chris Moxley. I'm Matt Bruening. We are going to be continuing our pre-spring priority show, and we have got a sicko show for you. Makes sense with Chris Moxley here. He's probably, let's just be honest, going to be carrying this show for the most part. We are going to be talking about Indiana, Iowa, Northwestern. I do know a little bit of something about Michigan State, so we will definitely talk about them. We will talk a little bit of Caitlin Clark, Iowa versus LSU. But Moxley, I'm just going to throw this to you. You had no idea I was about to do this. Do you want to tell us why you hate Americans today?
Oh, that's a discussion for another time.
All right.
We're gonna get too many negative reviews, and I'm gonna get canceled.
Nah, you won't be canceled. Austin likes you too much.
We'll see.
Did you watch the Iowa LSU game? I watched some of it. I was recording.
I did, along with 12.3 million other viewers.
Saw that, yeah. Higher than what was the thing? Felix sent
higher than every game of the World Series last year. Every game but one of the NBA Finals. More than the Orange Bowl. More than the Peach Bowl. More than every college football game except Michigan, Ohio State. That's pretty darn impressive.
Yeah,
I mean, that was an Elite Eight game. Yeah, that was not like it was the finals; it was the championship. It was an Elite Eight game. I just think it's super interesting how far women's basketball has come, and a lot of that is for Caitlin Clark. A lot of that is for Angel Reese. Big names in the sport, but it's a good product, and I think people dog on it for the wrong reasons. I think it has better pace than the men's game does because it's 10 minutes versus 20 minutes. So like they have halves and women's has quarters, and I think I prefer the pace of the women's play, and I got my unforgettable when South Carolina and men and women went to the Final Four, and I have been enjoying South Carolina's women's basketball dynasty for a while, so I'm just glad other people are starting to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it was I watched part of it. I was recording Campus Life with Colin Decker. I'll just say what I said on there. This was after the show. We were strictly business during the show. Like, maybe it's just me. I find it like extremely attractive when women just can dominate in a sport like that. And I'm like Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark just dominated. And I don't know why, but that's just like it's so much fun to watch because you expect it like from.
It makes the product.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Yeah. Like when you're watching, I can't hear you now on your microphone, but like, I'm not even talking about like Serena Williams. Like it's, I'm going to the soccer side of things, like Mia Hamm, watching her dominate at times, Alex Morgan. This is a great product. And I know Felix is probably like yelling at us through the show right now, but yeah, like it's just there. I heard you blow. Oh, that okay. Let's not take that out of context. Don't listen to that. Like it makes the game more attractive. Everything. Like it's so much fun to watch. We see it, at least I'll see it because I don't get a chance to watch a lot of women's sports. I see it on the men's side all the time. I mean, one of my favorite players right now is LeBron James. Like watching him for his extremely long span in the NBA. I was a little too young to remember a ton of Michael Jordan. Did watch some of him, but like watching even Juan Soto right now in baseball. Oh my God, who am I thinking of for your Braves? That's always really good. That now his name is
which one? Ronald Acuna, Ozzie Albies.
I do like Ozzie Albies as well. But I'm talking about Ronald Acuna.
Austin Riley.
Like Shohei Ohtani, like watching, like I watch a lot of men's sports. So like getting a chance to actually sit down and watch that, like it was fun to watch. Like watching them dominate. It was such a fun game. We're going to go both of them here. For you, who is your Caitlin Clark of college football?
That's a good question because I don't know that college football has that dominant face right now.
They don't. That's why I'm asking.
I mean, she's just like a larger than life person. It's like she's in all the commercials. She got a million brand sponsorships. Like she's dominating on the court. I would have said Caleb Williams.
Yeah,
that's probably the closest.
I disagree.
I think Travis Hunter is interesting.
Oh, I like Travis.
I don't think he is the name cachet. It would be it's Arch Manning when March Manning starts. That's probably the answer.
I was going to say Caleb to me is more, well, To me, he's more Angel Reese. I feel like Caleb's a little bit of the bad guy, and I think Angel Reese is painted as the bad guy. I think he is. Maybe it's just the slack and some of the people we have in there and the way they talk about Caleb Williams that I view him as the bad guy. But I mean, he's even getting crapped on for his painted nails. Like, and maybe it's just people find a reason to crap on people. I think
he's the first Gen Z quarterback, and people are having a hard time reconciling that with
that might be fair.
The way you've seen the quarterback position played. And he's a Gen Zer at heart. That's what he is, and that's who the Gen Z generation is. That's Caleb Williams, and I like him. He's like very authentic.
Oh, he is very authentic. He is very, very, and it rubs people the wrong way. So I think it's the same as Angel Reese. I don't feel like Angel Reese is not authentic. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I watch all of her press conferences or anything, but that's why I would say I would have compared Caleb more to Angel Reese, because I feel like just from what I've seen, I feel like Caitlin Clark is a little bit more buttoned up. Like even the whole thing last year with her and Angel Reese, like she was like, I was doing that to like I would have just talked crap if I was her after what happened. But that's why I was trying to think of it. Probably is Arch Manning. He's that just buttoned up dude who's not going to cause any controversy. He's not that Angel Reese or Caleb Williams are people. But yeah, it's so then who's your Angel Reese? Because mine's Caleb. Who's your villain? It can't be Lane Kiffin because I feel like he's everybody's villain.
My villain is really Kim Mulkey.
It can't be Nick Saban. Oh, okay, fine. Who's your Kim Mulkey of college football? It can't be Nick Saban.
Dabo Swinney. I think there's a lot of parallels to be drawn between Kim Mulkey and Dabo Swinney for what it's worth. Outside of outfit choices, I think there's a lot of parallels. Just interesting.
Interesting. Well, I'm sure this is a riveting conversation for everybody in the comments.
We
will talk freshman guide. Freshman guide is out. We're going to talk some freshmen on today's show. One of the guys that was a big hit in our guide last year, Aidan Chiles. We'll talk him about with Michigan State. If you guys want that, go to the website, purchase it. I promise you, it is worth the money and worth your time. It's one of my favorite things to work on. It's literally the only one in its existence, or the only kind of product in existence of that. We will have our rookie guide dropping, depending on when you listen to this, I'll just say next Monday on April 8th. We've been working very hard on that as well. Kind of a last minute thing. Colin and I did the Campus Life show about it on Monday. So if you were listening to the podcast feed, if you are listening currently to this on the podcast feed, we talked about that. We'll be dropping on Monday. I have really enjoyed it. As I said on that show, I feel like it's a very different perspective compared to how most people put out rookie guides. They just kind of go in and, in my opinion, kind of write a lot of the same stuff. The difference here is you get to see 3 years of evaluations on these players, and a lot of them are from different people who work here at Campus2Canton. Colin posted up the one of Drake May, and I believe it was Corey, Dwight, and myself all gave different write-ups throughout the 3 years on Drake May and what we thought about him. We put all kind of advanced stats in there. There is, I don't know if I'm supposed to call him by his real name or by his, or we're going to go Edna Beast Mode because I don't want to get in trouble. Edna Beast Mode put his, oh man, now I'm going to mess up what it is.
The QB neural network.
Yes, there we go. Yes. In there, which is also very intriguing. So there's a lot of good stuff in there, and it comes to you at the low price of $5 if you are not a member. If you are a member, you are getting it for free. It will be emailed to you, I believe, at midnight on Monday. If you are not a member, if you're listening to this on the podcast, you're watching this on the YouTube channel, and you want to check out the rookie guide, it is literally just $5. You can go to the website, $5, download it, and it is yours. I don't know of any rookie guides that are cheaper. So, and I think it's a very different product than what you're going to get on the current market for rookie guides. Indiana. The former coach from James Madison, Curt Cignetti, comes over here with Mike Shanahan, not that Mike Shanahan, as his offensive coordinator. He has served under Cignetti since 2021 with James Madison. His specialty has been the wide receiver coach, probably one of the best at his level. As you put in here, including players as Elijah Surratt, Juice Wells, and Chris Thornton. Departures, you got Brendan Sorsby to Cincinnati in the portal. Speedy wide receiver Jalen Lucas to Florida State, 185 pounds, but moves fast and is freaky. Wide receiver Cam Camper to Boise State, and 3 offensive linemen. Zach Carpenter to Miami, Khalil Benson to Colorado, and Matthew Bedford to Oregon. Their key additions through the transfer portal, Curtis Rourke from Ohio. Elijah Surratt from James Madison, Miles Cross from Ohio, and Miles Price from Texas Tech, and Keyshawn Williams from Wake Forest. All of those wide receivers outside of Curtis Rourke, who is a quarterback. Running backs, Kalen Black from James Madison, Justice Ellison from Wake Forest, Tyson Lawton from James Madison, and offensive tackle Tyler Stevens from James Madison as well. The holes, Chris, you have here that they are returning about 45% of their offensive line, but do lose their options like Matthew Bedford to Oregon, who we just talked about, and the wide receiver room. What are your thoughts here on Indiana, specifically to, I guess, let's go to the wide receiver room with possible quarterback Curtis Rourke possibly starting here, who, at least in my opinion, is not the greatest passer and it is coming up from the G5, which, might be an intriguing thing coming here into the Big Ten and what this means for us on the fantasy side of things, if there is any fantasy value.
Yeah, Curtis Rourke is good when he's healthy. He just struggles with health a lot. Like he was hurt all of last year, and I think he was hurt in the very first game too. So we didn't see that, and I think that we would have a much different opinion on him if that was the case. Because I thought he played really good the year before. I thought he's been pretty decent in general. I think we assume Elijah Surratt's the guy because he was the guy last year for JMU, and they're bringing over like the entire team basically. I think Miles Cross is a good player though, and I'm interested to see what Miles Price does. So it's gonna be a pretty deep rotation. I think, and I think Kalen Black, that running back they brought in, is an interesting player too. I liked him last year at JMU. I don't know what to think. Honestly, of what this offense is going to look like because it's just there's so much turnover.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, looking at what they were able to do at James Madison, it's, obviously a different skill level. And I'm just going to go ahead and say this. I don't know if he's going to listen to this. Mike Valor, you're actually getting a James Madison shirt at Ship today. That's the shirt I bought you for winning the Tank Bigsby, whoever you picked, a Roshan Johnson bet. Got him the Dukes James Madison shirt. And little whatever the special kind of shirt is with the short sleeves so he can show off those supposed guns that he has, get the wife all excited. So, but there you go. Hope you enjoy it, Mike. The running back room alone is really intriguing. As you said, Kalen Black, they did bring in, as we mentioned, Tyson Lawton and Justice Ellison. Trent Howard and David Holman, I believe, are the only two returning at the running back position. Yeah. Neither one of them extremely productive. So I think that's wide open. I mean, maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh on Curtis Rourke. Again, I'm just worried about him transferring up and what that's going to mean at Indiana. They do, in my opinion, have a pretty tough schedule next year as well. But Miles Price, I mean, you mentioned he could be intriguing. I mean, he's a guy 2 years ago we were in love with because of what he was able to do. And obviously, what was it? Who came over? McGuire? Am I getting that right? Joey McGuire? Yeah.
I think you're thinking of Zach Kittley.
That's Zach Kittley is who I am definitely thinking of. Good job. Jerry Maguire is going on my TV right now. That's that definitely is what threw me off. No, Zach Kittley coming over and what he had been able to do with the slot wide receivers. We were hoping that was going to be Miles Price. Never really was able to break out. I think some of that had to do with injury as well. Do we really care? I know we definitely don't value Miles Price as high as we used to. What's the best case scenario for him in this offense? Because me personally, I just don't think Indiana's going to be a good team this year.
I don't think he's draftable. I wouldn't even roster him, to be totally honest. I think the wide receivers you want to roster are Elijah Surratt and maybe Donovan McCulley, who's a converted quarterback. And you're just banking on athleticism with him. And he played well down the stretch too. He did. So I don't want to discount that, but yeah, there's not a lot of upside on this team, to be honest. Just it's a tough schedule. How does Cignetti handle the Big Ten? He's been at James Madison for a while, and this is a step up. I don't know. A lot of questions.
Yeah, I mean, I just find it very hard to rely on anybody here. I mean, their schedule, it starts off fairly easy. So, maybe they're able to put up some fantasy points, especially, maybe Rourke's able to get it going. FIU, Western Illinois, at UCLA, and then Charlotte. So, I mean, I think at least 3 of those games are winnable. They might be able to beat UCLA. I mean, I think it's hard to travel cross country and play there in the Rose Bowl, but maybe they're able to pull that off. Then, though, they get Maryland, Northwestern, they get the bye week, but then it's Nebraska, Washington, Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State, Purdue. I don't see many wins in there, and I also don't see a lot of chances for them to get in shootouts, especially not with some of the defenses they'll face down the stretch there. So again, I think you're really limiting your fantasy upside with any Indiana player. I find it very hard to roster any of these guys.
Yeah, but I mean, we've seen what this offense has been able to do with, in my opinion, subpar quarterback play the last 2 years. Like, I don't think Jordan McLeod's anything special. And I don't, yeah, the final stretch is really what's going to get you, right? You got Michigan, Ohio State. That's a tough back-to-back championship weeks, right? Like, you're going to be in the playoffs. Purdue's fine. Yeah. It's tough to buy into this offense, but it's also pretty cheap to buy into this offense. So the upside is probably there. But I'm only really targeting Rourke and Surratt for fantasy production this year. I think that's the only two you can actually rely on.
All right. Moving on to the offensive powerhouse, Iowa. Kirk Ferentz stays on at head coach, but they bring in Tim Lester from Western. What was it? Was it Western Michigan? Right?
He was. I think he was an offensive analyst for the Packers last year, but he was at Western Michigan before then.
As their offensive coordinator. They lose to the draft cornerback Cooper DeJean to, as I'm pretty sure just mentioned, to the draft. They did not lose anybody transferring out. Key additions in, no one as well. But they do bring in freshman Gavin Hoffman. He is tight end 12 on 24/7 Sports. He is a 201st overall player, and he is our tight end 5. Good athlete with every down potential. I mean, obviously, the offense can't get any worse, right? Like, I mean, it can only go up from here is the hope.
Yeah, I don't think it can get worse. Right? Like, realistically speaking, it was just the worst case scenario for the last 2 years under Ferentz. I think it's coming from Kirk too, but I just don't think it could be quite as bad. But maybe it is. Who knows?
So, I mean, they've got at least one player that we do like in Kate. Oh, goodness. My whole computer just went black. Can you still hear me? This is like beautiful.
Yeah, this is great radio, but yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Caleb Johnson is
they do Caleb Johnson.
He is still on the. I'm sorry. Yeah, Caleb Johnson. Yeah. Your thoughts on it? Iowa's had decent running backs in the past. Are you intrigued in rostering him? Like, what are your thoughts on Caleb Johnson? Is he, outside of the tight end position, which I think we can have a separate discussion on, is he the only offensive player you're willing to roster right
now? Outside of the tight end position, yes. Okay. I think so. I think he's a better player than LaShawn Williams is, and he was banged up last year, so I expect him to kind of rebound a little bit. But I mean, LaShawn Williams is fine. They also have Jason Patterson, who I don't really think much of. So, yes, probably. I think he's the best back in that room. I don't know what the upside is, but if you think the offense is going to get a little bit better, more scoring opportunities, I think that's the story you need to tell yourself. And yeah, outside the tight end position, though.
Yeah, I mean, tight end is where they make their bread and butter. They continue to put, just absolute freaks into the NFL. And we'll talk about Luke Lachey and Gavin here, who just came in as a true freshman. But I was trying to pull up how Iowa has done with their running backs of late. And I mean, it has been kind of all over the place over the last couple years, though. They had the one good year in 2020 where actually both of their first and second string running backs were doing fairly decent. I mean, their running back 1 was upwards of 17 points, and the running back 2 is almost at 12 points. So that's not bad. I mean, it's not a guy you're really starting, but still a guy that you could possibly lean on. But then since then, 2021 wasn't horrible with 14 points a game for their running back 1. But in 2022, it was 9, and then last year, 6 points per game. So if you hope Caleb Johnson can take over and do something again, I kind of agree with Chris. We don't know. I don't know who I'm really trusting on this offense. We don't know what Tim Lester is going to do with this. I mean, we know Kirk Ferentz wants to play defense and run the ball. That's going to be the main thing, which is the only reason maybe I would trust in Caleb Johnson, because they want to just get the short fields with the defense and then just run the ball, keep the ball out of the quarterback's hands, no turnovers, all that good stuff, 1950 football. So we'll see. I mean, who's it they got? Is Cade McNamara coming back to play quarterback for them? We can't hear you.
I would assume he's the guy.
I could lip read what you just said.
Right I don't think they're going back to Deacon Hill, right? Like, there's no chance.
I would think not, but so Cade McNamara quarterback. Yeah, it's not.
It doesn't matter really. All we care about is the tight end position in the passing game, anyway.
That is true. So they have who's returning? Addison. Is it Ostrenga? Ostrenga?
I think it's Ostrenga, but I'm not.
Ostrenga. Luke Lachey, who's obviously going to be the big name, and then freshman last year, Zach Ortworth. We're trying here, folks, and Johnny Pascuzzi. I feel like that was right. I feel like I nailed Johnny there.
Yeah, Johnny Pascuzzi.
Pascuzzi. There we go. So I'm glad I nailed Johnny there. And obviously, as we talked about, Gavin Hoffman coming in, freshman tight end as well. Luke Lachey, you were fairly high. Wait, no, I don't want to butcher this. Were you high on Luke Lachey last year? I know you were high on Michigan's tight end last year, who was actually pretty good. Colston
I wasn't as high as others were on Lachey.
Okay. Was Austin the one? I feel like someone on the show was really high on Luke Lachey. It's probably Austin because he never gets called out for his wrongs, although Luke Lachey.
That's true. Last year. No, I mean, I liked him. I wasn't drafting him up there, but I mean, he got hurt.
Yeah.
He only played in 2 games, but he was excellent when he played. So I expect him to step like right into the tight end 1 role. Eric All is gone as well. So I think, and Ostrenga did okay. I think in his limited opportunity as well. I think we're betting some overs on him at the end of the season, but I think Lachey is going to come back, and assuming he's healthy, be pretty good.
So Luke Lachey and Caleb Johnson, probably the only players you want to even think about rostering. Definitely probably starting Luke Lachey, question marks around Caleb Johnson.
Yeah, I have no idea what the rotation is going to look like. Like I said, I think Caleb Johnson's the best back in this room, but LaShawn Williams outperformed him last year on a per touch basis, so I'm not convinced that it's not going to be a split again, even though I'd prefer if it was not.
We don't really talk a lot of CFF dynasty here, but I'm just going to ask you this question just because I want to say it again. If you're in a CFF dynasty draft that's kicking off and you want the future Iowa tight end, are you going Gavin Hoffman or are you going Johnny Pascuzzi? Which one are you going with?
Hoffman. I don't really know much about Pascuzzi, but
neither do I.
I do like Hoffman.
Name. Okay. Why do you
want
to
say Hoffman? It again?
I did. I just wanted to say.
I think he has the size and the athleticism to be like. I don't want to say the next great Iowa tight end because that's putting a lot of pressure on someone, but he's got every down potential too. And so that's a player who I think can get on the field earlier, especially because they play so many like 12 and 13 personnel formations. So he's pretty interesting. I would probably draft him in both CFF Dynasty and like C2C. Last round of a C2.
That's what I was just about to ask you. Would you be willing to take like one of your like 43 through 45th round pick on him just to have him on your roster so nobody else grabs him?
Yeah. But I'm also usually drafting more tight ends than anybody else. So
that is fairly true. I usually end up with like 3 on my roster. I feel like you end up with like 10 to 12. So I
end up with way too many.
Which also screws you if you play like I do, because there was one year I was having to start G. Scott because I lost multiple tight ends, and that was
at least
that was not fun.
But Lachey is, I mean, he is not just a CFF option. He's a long-term dynasty option too, and we think he's an NFL draft player, probably day 2 pick. Assuming he comes back, looks healthy, and looks good. But that's how I would treat him. Like I think he's certainly worth someone that you need to be rostering and valuing highly.
Where does the CFF team have him this year? I know he was like top 5 last year. Is he still in the top 5?
Probably top 5.
Okay.
It depends whether or not you count certain players as tight ends.
Like,
looking at Aronde Gadsden, Holden Willis, Donovan Smith.
Gotcha. Donovan Smith listed as a tight end? Or am I thinking of the wrong?
Dalvin Smith. Sorry.
I was about to say it's like Donovan Smith. I just saw him getting propped up on Twitter for being a quarterback. So I just wanted to make sure there wasn't a position change.
Dalvin Smith, the wide receiver at Western Kentucky, who still has tight end eligibility somehow, some way. Luke Lachey is currently our tight end 6.
Okay. So still pretty good. I would imagine you'd be able to get him at a decent spot in your drafts if you want to go tight end. You ready to talk about Northwestern, who actually had a very surprising year last year?
Yeah, absolutely.
So David Braun is back in at head coach. They dropped the interim tag for him in November. He won 8 games. New offensive coordinator Zach Lujan from South Dakota State, who heavily utilizes motion late into the count too. Lots of RPO, 12 and 13 personnel passing out of those situations for explosive plays. That was all courtesy of Chris Moxley. New offensive line coach Bill O'Boyle last year at something because I can't see. Prior to Kent State, also
He was at Colorado last year.
There we go. The thing popped up, says an anonymous capybara, and so kind of.
Oh, that's me. I'm the anonymous capybara.
Blocked Colorado part. A little behind the scenes look there. It was also the run game coordinator of them, Coach Danny Woodhead at Shadron State. Hey, how about that? I know someone who played with Danny Woodhead. Was one Ray Garvin.
I thought that was an interesting nugget. Right?
It is an interesting nugget. Yeah. Did you know that Ray Garvin from Destination Devi, he actually played with Danny Woodhead, knows him. They still talk to this day.
That is news to me. I did not know that.
Yeah, he played with Danny Woodhead. Key departures: Ben Bryant and quarterback Ben Bryant, wide receiver Cam Johnson, both went to the draft. Transfers out: Anthony Tyus, running back, and offensive lineman Josh Preby to Michigan. Key transfers in: left guard Jack Bailey from Colorado, following his offensive line coach. And we have freshman wide receiver Carson Grove, 5'9", 175 pounds. Starting at the quarterback position, which is, I guess, an interesting question. We have Brandon Sullivan and Ryan Helinski. Helinski had moments last year, I think is fair to say. I mean, again, Northwestern won. I mean, when you roll your eyes, he had moments. I'm not saying he's a good quarterback, but he had moments. They won 8 games. I mean, it wasn't all because of the defense.
I don't even remember how much he played last year.
I know he played a little bit. There was one game where I felt like
a lot more 2 years ago.
I feel like he
attempted
really good in one game.
To be fair, he attempted 4 passes, but for 88 yards and a touchdown.
Am I thinking of the one game then that I could have swore he played in multiple games. Did he really only complete 4 passes last year?
Yeah, one of them was an 85-yard touchdown.
Who am I thinking of that played then last year?
Oh, it's either Brendan Sullivan or Ben Bryant.
All right. It must have been Ben Bryant. What do we think? Is it going to be Brandon Sullivan, Ryan Helinski? Which way are you leaning for the quarterback position? It doesn't. I think it's not unfair to say it doesn't really matter for us from a fantasy perspective, at least from the quarterback play. We'll discuss what it means for wide receivers here in a
minute. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be Helinski. What is this, his 6th year?
And he hasn't really close to that. Yeah,
he hasn't really done anything. Listen, I had to watch Ryan Helinski start an entire season in South Carolina, so I know what the guy can and can't do, and I don't think he could play football at a Power 4 level. So, I'm not even sure Brandon Sullivan can either. I think they should add somebody in the portal, but it doesn't sound like they're going to.
It's funny that you say that, because I remember when he got those starts for South Carolina, because I don't remember what it was. He had something personal happen off the field. He's got one of those motivational stories about, making it and all those, and then they were running that thing on ESPN all the time that year that he started for South Carolina. A lot of people hope
his older brother committed suicide.
That's what it was.
Around that time, and so he's a whole foundation set up and draws attention to mental health and whatnot. So yeah, he's great. I mean, he's a great kid. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think the football aspect is quite there for him at this level.
Gotcha. They have no proven players on the outside in the wide receiver position outside of Bryce Kurtz and AJ Henning. AJ Henning, a guy that I thought might be able to do something at Michigan. That never happened. What are your thoughts on this wide receiver room? And again, is there anybody here like even worth rostering for us from a fantasy perspective?
I don't think so. To be honest, I'm not sure there's a one player in this entire team that's worth rostering, if I'm going to be totally honest. I just don't. This is such an interesting situation because David Braun, Pat Fitzgerald gets fired, David Braun gets promoted from interim, to interim. Northwestern wins 8 games. He gets signed as the full-time head coach. Kind of clears out staff. He brings in Zach Lujan, who had been at South Dakota State for quite a few years. I think he spent 4 years there. But his offense, if you watch South Dakota State, is pretty unique. Like we talked about at the beginning, like they utilize a lot of motion, very RPO heavy, but the personnel is generally speak like they have like 3 tight ends on the field a lot. I don't know that this offense is built to run what Lujan wants to run. The kid's 28 years old. Like he's been offensive coordinator for a handful of years, and he's like a rising stud. I have no idea what the offense is going to look like though, because I don't think they have tight ends. I don't like the wide receiver options.
Yeah.
The most interesting player maybe is Carson Grover's coming in, and he's like a 5'9", 175 slot guy.
Yeah.
He's a true freshman. I don't know. My wish that I wrote on the sheet was that they bring in Harold Fannin. I think he'd be a nice fit there in a tight end heavy offense, but he probably wants to stay at Bowling Green and get beat up on the MAC.
Yeah, I mean, right now they currently only have 3 tight ends on the roster, so I don't know how well that's going to work running a 3 tight end offense. The one thing that you say with him having all the RPOs and a lot of movement, that does, and maybe I'm just letting like my previous bias kind of come in here, that does actually kind of make me excited a little bit for AJ Henning with what he can do is like a speed guy. They did give him some rushes last year as well, so maybe he gets like some jet sweeps and stuff, but again, I don't know that I'm ever wanting to start a Northwestern player for my fantasy squads. Like I would be very surprised if AJ Henning even ends up as like a wide receiver 5. But like I could see him in like a best ball league, maybe having a couple weeks where like he puts up decent points because I do think he is an intriguing offense or an intriguing option in that offense at least.
Yeah, I think it's really this team has been really interesting to watch long term because I like the changes that they've made. I think Braun's a good coach, and I think Lujan might cook up some really interesting offenses. So tentatively excited for what happens long term. I just don't think they have the guys right now to pull it off.
I mean, they may, unfortunately, if Lujan goes out there and actually runs a competent offense for like, let's say a year or two, he's probably not going to be at Northwestern very long anyways. He'll probably get plucked out and taken somewhere, especially if Northwestern plays good against one of the bigger end schools. I mean, Cam Porter, though, real quick, was a guy that was getting some love last year. Do we want to roster him at all? I mean, he's returning back at the running back position, which also doesn't have like a ton of great options there either.
I don't know. The offensive line kind of stinks. But what's interesting about the offensive line coach that they hired is he was the guy who orchestrated those really good Kent State rushing attacks like 3-4 years ago when they were running for like over 200 yards a game. I think that's pretty interesting. I think it's a lot of it's offensive line continuity, and I think they can do some damage against weaker opponents, but I think the Josh Prevey transfer kind of stinks. Although Jack Bailey they got from Colorado, who's probably just going to plug in the same spot, he's probably their best lineman last year. If not, he was the most consistent.
So can I give you a little bit of a hot take here?
Go for it.
If Zach Lujan's going to be as good as you think he can be, and I trust you when it comes to like these offensive coordinators and coaches, Northwestern might have someone. They have an easy schedule. I mean, easy schedule. Depending on what you think about Duke's defense. I mean, I think with Elko leaving, I don't think Duke's defense is going to be quite as good. But they've got Miami of Ohio, Duke, then Eastern Illinois. I think Washington is a beatable team, personally.
Yeah.
I think Northwestern can win that. Then they have an off week. Then Indiana, Maryland. Okay, so maybe Wisconsin. I'm kind of torn on what I really think Wisconsin's going to be, but Wisconsin probably wins that game. Iowa, then they get Purdue, another off week. Then Ohio State and Michigan are going to be losses, but then Illinois. Like, that's a lot of winnable games. And if Zach Lujan can figure out these weapons and this offense, like, I don't know.
He runs a very Big Ten style offense, like a lot of jumbo, right? So I do wonder if it's not going to be exotic enough to really make a difference. But we'll see. It's pretty unique. It's at least very creative. I'll say that. So I wanted to figure out what their win total was.
Well, while you're looking it up, I'll say, so what you're saying to me, if you want to quote it or put it to like in soccer terms, for those of you who watch soccer, it's like going to watch like Newcastle United. They're a good team. They're an okay team. I know you don't know what that means. But like, you just want them to play good offense and play well, have a good game, and not get blown out by like 45-3 to Illinois kind of thing. Like, you just want to, when you spend your money, you want to watch a good game. I think Northwestern's going to give that. So will Zach Lujan. Did I stall long enough for you to get the win total?
Yeah, the total's 5.5, but it's heavily juiced to the under. I think going bowling would be a huge success again this year. I don't know if they get there, but
well, let's
maybe.
let's play the schedule game. Miami of Ohio, that's a win. What do we think about Duke?
Probably.
Oh, I'll give them the win. I'll give them the win.
I think it's probably close.
Okay, well, we'll hold off for now. Eastern Illinois, I think that's a win. Indiana, Washington.
I would give them a loss against Indiana, probably a little loss against Washington.
Okay, Maryland. So that's probably a loss against Maryland too. I would think.
Probably a loss against Maryland.
Well, then yeah, they're not getting there because then you got Illinois and Purdue. They're definitely not beating Michigan or Ohio State or Iowa. So
maybe. Yeah, I think I'm probably closer to 5.
I'm taking the over. Believing in the Northwestern Wildcats this year.
Good luck. They don't know where they're playing half their home games. So.
Oh man, that's a fair point. Ryan Helinski, he's bringing it back. He's rolling back. He's going to have a great season. AJ Henning's going to finish as a wide receiver 3. I don't know about maybe Cam does something. Who knows? I don't know about the running back position. I don't even know who else they have on that roster. To be honest with you, Cam Porter.
They have Joseph Hyman.
Who's the other one? Yeah, Joseph Hyman. Who was there? Not anybody else who came back? Jake Arthurs. So
I don't know who that
is. Cam Porter to the moon, baby. Cam Porter to the moon. Let's talk about Michigan State, though. That's the team that everybody came here to talk about. Mel Tucker out for inappropriate texting. I think that's the fairest way to put that at the moment. In Jonathan Smith, someone both Chris Moxley and myself have been fans of for quite a while. They bring in Brian Lingard to call plays at offensive coordinator, likes 12 and 13 personnel. And he has used 2 QBs at times. Key departures, wide receiver Trey Mosley to the draft, along with center Nick Samok and left guard J.D. Duplain. Transfers out. My boy, Caden Hauser. He is out to Eastern Carolina. Quarterback Noah Kim to Coastal Carolina. My other boy, Sam Levitt to Arizona State, where he is going to start, by the way, you Sun Devil fans in my mentions. He's starting.
I've heard that as well.
He's going to start. Trenton Borgo.
People who are plugged in.
Wide receiver
Jaden Rashada, but
Jaden Rashada is not better than Sam Levitt either. He ain't starting.
I don't think he is either. But sorry.
Oh, I know. There's no. You're good.
Not Michigan.
We'll talk. Yeah, we'll bring that up when we're talking about Arizona State. I guess that matters. But they're a very intriguing team. I can't wait to talk about Arizona State. Wide receiver Christian Fitzpatrick to Wisconsin. Tight end Malik Carr to Houston. Right tackle Spencer Brown to Oklahoma, and right guard Kevin Wigginton to Illinois. Their key additions through the transfer portal: quarterback Aidan Chiles from Oregon State, quarterback Tommy Schuster from North Dakota, 42 starts in the last 4 years. Tight end Jack Vellin from Oregon State had 86% route participation rate in 2023. Right guard / center Tanner Miller, and left tackle Luke Newman from Holy Cross. Chris has added he is an extremely underrated add in his opinion. They also bring in wide receiver Nick Marsh, the freshman, who has a good relationship with Aidan Chiles. I think was a big reason why he ended up coming there. Very intriguing player, over 21 miles per hour, comps athletically to Brian Edwards. And QB Alicio Milohilovic. That's probably dead wrong. But he is
I even tried to help.
I know I can't. I'm trying to read that and I can't. It's not going to happen, folks. But he is our 50th ranked quarterback for the freshman. Wide receiver, though, has to be a big question here for Michigan State. In fact, I had posted a tweet recently where I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised that our own CFF stud Nate Marquise agreed with me on Aidan Chiles. I was a little concerned people were going to come at me and saying that I believe at the end of this year he will be considered the best quarterback in the Big Ten. And Nate said he would go as far as saying he's one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. Love to hear it, but
who in the Big Ten is better than Aidan Chiles? Will be better than Aidan Chiles, you think?
That will be
the worst. It's like the worst conference for quarterbacks, right?
Oh, I agree. Well, I mean, I wasn't trying to. I have been obviously a big Aidan Chiles fan since before he even made it to Oregon State. So I didn't want to go what I felt might be a tad bit of an exaggeration, saying one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. Now that Nate said it, I can pile on and say I agree with Nate, but I didn't want to be the one who was saying it. But no, I agree with you. There's not. I mean, maybe Devin Brown if he can figure it out, just because I do think he's got a stronger arm. But Aidan Chiles is more athletic than Devin Brown is. But outside of him, I
I think the answer is Dylan Gabriel, but I mean, we're talking about different
That's
things
possible. Yeah, that's
we consider.
possible with the offense
Um,
and everything they run. That's fair. That's fair. But wide receiver is a big hole here for the Michigan State Spartans. Wide receiver coach Courtney Hawkins was the only one retained from Mel Tucker's staff. They have Monte Foster, Antonio Gage Jr., and Alante Brown.
I think it's Alante.
Alante Brown. Are any of these guys? I'll say I think Aidan Chiles' value is going to come from what he ends up doing with his legs more than his passing. But is there a guy that we trust in the receiving side of this?
You know, TJ Sheffield he committed and then decommitted. I thought he would have been really interesting. I think it's got to be Monterey Foster right now. Just he has the most experience and the most production thus far. Alante Brown's, I think he's going into his 5th year, so he's a little older. Doesn't have a lot of experience. They are piping up Antonio Gates Jr. for what it's worth. But if you want my real answer on who I'm drafting from this Michigan State receiving options, it's Jack Failing, the tight end.
No, we want you to lie to us, please.
I think Jack Failing's the one to target here.
Okay.
He blocks on 11% of snaps. 86% route participation grade. Like this is a player who they want to get running routes, operating downfield, and they use the tight end in this offense. They always have.
Yeah.
So I think Jack Failing is the one that I want to target here, especially in tight end premium leagues. He's probably going pretty under the radar.
Yeah. What was it Luke Musgrave, right? Am I remembering the name right? Went to the Green Bay Packers. Was very good in this offense just a couple years ago with Oregon State.
Yeah.
So maybe it ends up being.
Failing was good last year too.
Yeah. I mean, I get why people are pumping up Antonio Gates Jr., son of Antonio Gates.
What if his name was like Cameron
Portable
Jones
the fourth?
Would, what if it was just he just had a super average?
He would not be pumped up. Which again, just to prove to you, Mike Valerie, name matters because people will pump him up because of what his name is. Same with why Arch Manning is getting a lot of love because he's not starting this year. But Antonio Gates Jr. I mean, what did he have? He only had 82 yards last year. Could have swore he had more. He had and 1 touchdown. I'm probably thinking of the 1 touchdown that he obviously scored, where a lot of people were excited for him. We'll see. I mean, I don't think it's unfair to say quarterback play was not great for Michigan State last year. I mean, Noah Kim had a few moments. I thought, the first game Caden Hauser came in. I don't remember who the opponent was. I felt like he played okay in that game. He was not great, but it was just Michigan State was in shambles last year after Mel Tucker left. They weren't really great to begin with the year prior. Mel Tucker got a lot of love because of what he did in the transfer portal 2 years ago during COVID.
The team quit.
Yeah,
essentially was what happened. Like they a lot of them stopped trying. So yeah, it was a disaster for Michigan State last year, and they got out of that Mel Tucker contract too.
Yeah, well,
which was a very tough deal to get out of.
When you're sending pics and messages and all that other stuff, I think.
I wonder who leaked that.
I mean, hey, I'd do it too if I was getting out of a $70 million or whatever it was contract. I'd be leaking everything.
I mean, it's what they did with Jeremy Pruitt, right, at Tennessee.
Yeah, that's the rumors. Yeah.
So yeah, no, I just rumor mill. Yeah. One ad here that I thought was kind of interesting was bringing in Tommy Schuster. He's not. I don't think he's competing for the starting job. I think the job is pretty much Chiles. Yeah. But if you need somebody who's steady and has played a lot and has a lot of experience, especially in big leverage games, I think you could do worse than Tommy Schuster. I really do. He's a good quarterback. And I think it's pretty interesting he went here and saying he probably knows he's not getting the job and went anyway. So it's good to have it's really smart to have somebody like that behind Chiles who maybe he struggles, maybe he gets hurt. He's a mobile quarterback. We don't know. Yeah. I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't know. I think this team's gonna be better than they were last year.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I'm also a big believer in Jonathan Smith, so I think that he is going to be able to turn this team around. That's what maybe that's why, Schuster came here. He also just believes in Jonathan Smith and what he sold. I mean, it is thing. I mean, Aidan Chiles, as much as I love him, As you said, he is a rushing threat. He does have a thin frame too. He's not the bulkiest of quarterbacks, so maybe he does possibly. I hope that does not happen, but maybe he gets some kind of injury and Schuster has to step in. We'll get to see a little bit. I think there's spring games in a couple weeks. I think it's on the 20th.
Yeah,
I have it
started
marked.
anyway.
Yeah, I've that marks. I wanted to see how Aidan Chiles did. I know he's getting rave reviews. And again, it's not surprising. I mean, that's Jonathan Smith's guy, man. And he's been committed to Jonathan Smith realistically for throughout the whole process. Jonathan Smith's one of the first guys to go recruit him. And he stuck with him through the entire recruiting process when a lot of big name teams came calling, including teams like Ohio State in the same conference. I think Oregon came calling as well. Now he stayed committed to Jonathan Smith. So I'm excited to see what he does when he hits the field. Running back position. Did not realize Jalen Berger is still in college football, yet here he is. Also Nathan Carter. I mean, we've seen the running back position be fairly successful with Jonathan Smith. They had a couple guys. Oh God, who is the guy that I absolutely loved? He's on
Kenneth
the Detroit
Walker?
Lions now. No, that was Mel Tucker. No, Oregon State running backs. They had two of them. That
bad radio, but
it is.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I love that kid coming out of Oregon State. He ended up getting drafted by the Detroit Lions in the 6th round. And I remember talking, as Felix always claims he's like this massive Detroit Lions fan and can like name every player on the roster and their mother and father. And he couldn't remember that guy was on his roster. Now I can't even remember his name. But he had a couple good years with Oregon State in that offense. But they also had some Jamar Jefferson. There we go. I knew I was going to remember it eventually.
There we go.
But there was also somebody else just a couple years ago. Same thing. He got drafted really late, but was really successful in that Oregon State offense as well before Damian Martinez took over, who again also like really good in this offense. So do you believe they have one of those type of running backs on this roster, and are you willing to trust in rostering them and playing them? And again, a Nathan Carter and a Jalen Berger, who, all the off-field stuff aside, was a highly touted guy for a while before transferring. Was it Wisconsin running back, right? Before transferring over here to Michigan State?
Yeah, I think I don't want to spread the wrong thing, but I don't think his relationship with Wisconsin ended quite amicably.
Yeah.
Amicably. So, yeah. But Jalen Berger got hurt last year, and but he was still a rotational guy. Like, it was Nathan Carter's job. But he's really the only one there with a lot of experience. They have Davion Prim, who I don't think they want to use a whole lot. Yeah, I think it's Nathan Carter's job, but I think Nathan Carter could have a pretty good year if you think the offensive line is going to play a little bit better and the overall team is going to play a little bit better. I don't know. I like we said earlier, I like that Luke Newman kid they brought in from Holy Cross. Like, he was one of the better tackles in the entire conference for a while. But I don't know. That Spencer Brown loss to Oklahoma is pretty big. He's kind of a dirty player. He's a little bit of a dirty player.
You're not cheating, you're not trying. That's what I've always been told.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think there's a lot to like moving forward with Jonathan Smith. I don't know that this year is the big year to bank on it.
And it was BJ Baylor. That was the other running back I was thinking of. Almost 1,400 rushing yards, 13 touchdowns. He had a good year for Oregon State. So I mean, he's had pretty consistent running back play. So I don't know that translates here. I mean, the Big Ten is really kind of smash mouth football and has been for a long time. So I don't know if that necessarily translates, but I think maybe one of these running backs could be fairly interesting, whether it's Nathan Carter or Jalen Berger.
And Carter's going as RB68 in CFF draft right now. So, like, that's not a bad price if you think that he could have 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Running back 86 in CTC. So, I don't know. I think you could do worse. And I don't think Berger's going to come knocking, especially. I mean, I think he tore his ACL. I'm trying to remember what the injury was. It was a season-ending injury, and it happened late October. He's probably not 100%.
Oh, sorry. I thought that was. I thought you were going to continue. Yeah, I was trying to look up his injury. Yeah, I mean, I think the only. Obviously, you do have to worry somewhat about injury. It says he was done for the year. Missed the remainder of the year for the injury. Likely. Nope. Can't see anything that's like actually says what his injury is. Just keep it. Says nope. Same thing. Hasn't been disclosed. but it missed the rest of the season. So I don't want to guess at what it was. I mean, ACL makes sense with missing the rest of the season, but I guess could have been anything. I mean, obviously you do have to worry a little bit about Aidan Chiles stealing some of your rushing production if they do get down into the red zone, possibly some rushing touchdowns. They used him a lot in that way as that second quarterback at times last year with Oregon State, as well as kind of just coming in and being that rushing threat. So with good old DJ, I'm not even going to say it. I've practiced that so many times, by the way, when he transferred. That's what I call him. But then I feel so disrespectful. I practiced that last name so many times when I did that Florida State video, and I nailed it. And now I can't say it again. I've got the yips. I just can't do it. And I feel like it's disrespectful. I do want to mention, because you did also put in here Nick Marsh. Again, I don't know the exact relationship, but I know that he does have some kind of relationship with Aidan Chiles. They were posting all about it on Twitter before he committed to Michigan State. I know his family was like retweeting a lot of that stuff as well. Very intriguing player that, like, I don't know that he comes in this year as that wide receiver and takes over. I do think he has a chance to break the year 1-0 though, because he's sitting there at 6'3", 205. Again, clocked over 21 miles per hour. Chris has in here that his athletic comp is Brian Edwards, and I do think he brings a lot of that. Like, he's a really good contested catch guy, attacks the ball at the high point. He's not afraid to battle cornerbacks for that ball. Might be a guy that they use in the red zone. Again, I mean, when you look at this wide receiver depth chart, you know, as Chris said, we're talking about, you know, Antonio Gates Jr. maybe being the guy, and you wanted to go all in on their tight end, Jack Velling. I think that he could be an intriguing pick. I don't know where he's going in C2C drafts, and I imagine he's probably not going very high in freshman drafts either. I don't think, had him rated very high. So he would be an intriguing pick that I'd be interested in taking late, because again, him and Aidan Chiles already had that kind of chemistry and connection off the field. I think that could translate onto the field, especially with as wide open as that room is.
Yeah, he goes as tight end 8 in CFF drafts. So like, I think the CFF community is fairly aware of him.
On Jack Velling?
Yeah. But C2C, I mean, I think you're talking about a player who a lot of people probably, he was tight end 15. I'm not even that high on him. That feels really aggressive.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you are the tight end guru, so I will lean on your knowledge. I don't draft tight ends at all. So like, if Brock Bowers was sitting there a couple years ago in the 8th round, I still wasn't taking him. I was like, I can find a better running back or wide receiver.
I don't know. That feels expensive to me personally, especially when I'm looking at some of the names behind him. Like, I'd rather have Jake Brenningstool. I'd rather have Dalvin Smith. I'd rather have Tyler Warren. I'd rather have quite a few of those guys. So
you do have on here Monterey Foster Jr. is returning senior wide receiver as a possible player to watch. You think he has a higher ceiling in 2024 because of Aidan Chiles in this offense, or?
Yeah, I think quarterback play will be better, but it's not like he was really doing a whole lot with his opportunity last year. Like 1.8 yards per route run. This isn't like a crazy talented player. It's just a guy who's open for opportunity. And I mean, Trey Mosley's gone, Jerron Glover, Antonio Gates Jr. Like, those are your guys he's competing with targets with. So yeah, maybe he could be the wide receiver one. He probably is in line to do it right now, and he did it last year. Played almost every game. He might have played every game. Full health, and so yeah, not that excited about him though.
I mean, like, yeah, we talked about it, so I don't want to completely rehash that. But I mean, it's definitely a room that lacks any real stud. I mean, Monterey Foster and Alante Brown, they're both seniors. So, I mean, they have the experience. They're both, going to have a little bit of age possibly on some of these defensive backs that they play. But I don't think either one of those guys inspires confidence. That's why I say, like, I would be willing to take a late round pick on Nick Marsh. We do have him ranked as as our wide receiver 54. I wasn't even sure how high he was. So I think that, again, with the relationship he has with Aidan Chiles off the field, I think that could translate on the field. I don't know that he gets on the field early, but maybe a guy that comes in there, I think he could break that year 1-0. I was trying to pull up their schedule. I mean, they really don't have a hard schedule. Oh, I didn't see Oregon on there. I mean, Florida Atlantic, Maryland, Prairie View, A&M, and Boston College, I think, are all fairly winnable games for them. That's to kick off their season. So, like, I think Aidan Chiles is possibly a starting quarterback for you in most of those games. But then they hit a pretty tough schedule after that of Ohio State, Oregon, Iowa, Michigan. Those are probably all tough games. But if I'm being honest, I will be excited to watch that 4-game stretch for Aidan Chiles to see how he does against those teams, because obviously the cream of the crop in the Big Ten. But then he gets Indiana, Illinois, Purdue, and Rutgers. So like toward the end of fantasy championships, like the Aidan Chiles, again, with his rushing ability, might go right back to being a starting quarterback for you toward the end of the season. So I think, if you're a Michigan State fan, you've got some positives to look forward to. I think there's a shot that they go bowling this year. I hope they do. I'd love to see, Aidan Chiles and Jonathan Smith get that, because I'm also a big fan of Jonathan Smith.
I agree. And Michigan's win total is currently 5.5, but it is, again, heavily juiced to the under.
Interesting. I'm going to take the over. Over boy today. Over on Northwestern and then over on Michigan.
Yeah. Imagine feeling that confident in overs on Northwestern and Michigan State.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? When you guys win money at the end of the year, you guys can thank your boy Matty B. That is going to be it for Chris and myself. Maybe Felix will be back next week. We're not really sure what he's doing. And I don't know what we're going to be talking about. So Kirk, he bailed a while back when he found out we were talking about Indiana, Northwestern, and Michigan State.
He's supposed to be Big Ten boy. Scared
he is, but he's got a lot going on. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure he slipped the finger when he saw the teams that we were talking about. He just bailed early. I think he just wants to get on Felix. So maybe we'll have Kirk on next week if Felix is here. But Chris and I will catch you guys next week. I hope you guys have a great one. We'll talk to you guys again soon.